In the 1960s and 70s, the Miami Herald sprawled across the edge of Biscayne Bay. It was the largest building in Florida, a 700,000-square-foot architectural monument to civic authority. Inside, it operated as a dense ecosystem of human manpower. Copyboys ran wire reports across the floor, while rows of reporters and Pulitzer-winning editors investigated corruption and held local politicians accountable to the public. Delivering those investigations required an industrial scale of manufacturing. Giant crabtree presses consumed literal tons of ink and paper every single night to physically print the news, loading it onto fleets of delivery trucks by dawn. Through sheer logistical dominance, the printed broadsheet stood as the unquestioned center of a community's reality. If it happened in Miami, it passed through this building. The economics of that dominance were heavily subsidized by the federal government. In 1970, President Richard Nixon signed the Newspaper Preservation Act to protect struggling evening papers from bankruptcy. This chart breaks down how they did it. Under a Joint Operating Agreement, or JOA, competing papers like the Herald and the Miami News were allowed to merge their printing, distribution, and advertising departments into one single funnel, while keeping their editorial teams separate. The unintended consequence was an economic windfall. By combining their business operations, these papers achieved absolute, legally protected monopolies over local advertising. If a business wanted to reach a buyer in the city, they had to pay this single, merged entity. Even with that massive financial advantage, the Miami News continued to lose readers and eventually folded in 1988, leaving the Herald to absorb the entirety of that local advertising revenue. Sitting on top of record-breaking profit margins, corporate newspaper chains felt financially invincible. They had no idea that a series of new technologies were preparing to dismantle their entire business model. Information moved from the printed page to the living room, as the television screen became the primary way Americans received news. Producers like Roger Ailes quickly realized television's unique power, the ability to bypass local geography entirely. A zoning board meeting doesn't make for compelling viewing. Instead, the medium naturally favored highly produced national political narratives that offered high-stakes emotional hooks and polished production values. By prioritizing national conflict over local complexity, the format shifted the viewer's focus. Attention drifted away from neighborhood issues and toward the partisan battlegrounds of Washington that could grab millions of viewers at once. As the TV screen became the dominant lens for information, the appetite for local facts was replaced by a demand for nationalized outrage. Then came the internet. As the personal computer entered the home in the 1990s, websites instantly devoured the classified ad revenue that had kept local newspapers wealthy for decades. This dual-axis chart shows the bizarre paradox of that era. Newspaper chains like Knight Ridder were pulling in record profit margins, yet corporate executives panicked over paper costs and internet disruption. So they slashed their newsroom budgets to protect their profit lines. Inside the Miami Herald, this looked like endless hiring freezes and buyouts. Reporters called it the incredible shrinking Herald, as management systematically eliminated dedicated coverage of social services, the environment, and even City Hall itself. The strategy failed. Unable to innovate and offering a steadily worsening product, Knight Ridder went bankrupt in 2006. Corporate owners effectively demolished their own local fortresses from the inside out. When the digital age arrived in full force, there was no foundation left to defend. You can see the end of the print era in the literal demolition of the Miami Herald building in 2014. The operation retreated to a much smaller office in the suburbs. By 2020, they closed their own printing plant entirely, ceasing to print their own physical daily editions. Today, information consumption is almost entirely dictated by the smartphone screen. With the local paper gutted, the physical vacuum in our cities was immediately filled by mobile social media algorithms, supercharging the nationalized, fear-driven models that television engineers perfected decades ago. Yet, despite every technological shift in the delivery mechanism, the necessity of boots-on-the-ground, place-based journalism remains irreplaceable. When Hurricane Andrew leveled South Florida, it was human reporters at the Herald who proved how lax building codes had contributed to the destruction. It was local journalists who documented the reality of the Alien Gonzalez standoff. It was their relentless investigative reporting that forced national attention onto Jeffrey Epstein's crimes after authorities had signed off on a secret deal. And it was the hometown paper that provided breaking accountability reporting when the Surfside condominium collapsed in the middle of the night. As artificial intelligence emerges as the next screen disruption, the stakes remain the same. Without funding for local human journalism, the ability to understand our own communities simply disappears.